5 years of care. Two final words. My terminally ill wife's last message. Let me take you back 5 years. 5 years that changed my life forever. My name is Ethan, a 34-year-old man from a quiet suburban neighborhood in Massachusetts. I had the perfect life, or so I thought. A loving wife, Rachel, who was the kind of person that could light up any room she walked into. She was 31 then, and to me, she was my world. Rachel wasn't just my wife. She was my best friend, my anchor, and the one who taught me dream bigger than I thought possible. We had a little house on a tree-lined street. Nothing fancy, just ours. A cozy kitchen where Rachel loved to bake, a living room with creaky floorboards that whispered stories of every laugh we'd shared, and a small garden in the backyard where she planted roses every spring. Life wasn't extravagant, but it was full. It was ours. But all that changed with a single phone call. Isn't it strange how life does that? One moment, you're planning vacations and dreaming about the future, and the next, everything comes crashing down. That call wasn't just a disruption, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Rachel had been feeling tired for months. Nothing alarming, just small things she brushed off as stress. She was always the type to prioritize everyone else before herself. "I'm fine," she'd say with that reassuring smile of hers. But the truth was, she wasn't. That day, the doctor confirmed what we never expected. Rachel had an aggressive terminal illness, stage 4. No cure. Just time. Short, cruel, fleeting time. I remember the moment she told me. She didn't cry, not immediately. Instead, she looked at me with those big brown eyes that always seem to hold the universe, and she said, "Ethan, promise me we'll live. Not fight or fix or find a way, just live." And so, that's what we tried to do. The first year was a whirlwind. Treatments, appointments, and moments that felt like borrowed breaths. Rachel wanted to keep things normal, even when they were anything but. She insisted on baking her favorite chocolate chip cookies every Sunday, even when her hands shook so badly that flour coated the countertops. And every evening she'd sit in the garden, sipping tea, her scarf fluttering in the wind like a quiet rebellion against the disease that was stealing her life. It wasn't always perfect. There were days when anger and sadness consumed her, consumed us. Days when she couldn't get out of bed and the silence in our home felt heavier than words. But even then, she found ways to remind me of who she was. Rachel was the kind of person who could find beauty in the smallest things. A sunset, a song, the laughter of a child playing down the street. "Life is still here, Ethan," she'd whisper, even when it feels like it's slipping away. As the years passed, her body grew weaker, but her spirit never did. She started writing letters, hundreds of them. For me, for friends, for family, and even for strangers she'd never met. "Everyone deserves to feel loved," she'd say, her handwriting shaky but determined. It became her way of living, a legacy of words she hoped would outlive her. By year 3, I had become her caretaker. It's funny how life shifts like that, isn't it? The roles we take on, the sacrifices we make without a second thought. I learned how to cook, to administer medication, and to sit by her side for hours when the pain became unbearable. It wasn't easy, because it was for her. Rachel's illness taught me something I never expected: the true meaning of presence. Every moment mattered. Every laugh, every tear, every stolen second of joy. And as much as it hurt to watch her fade, I found myself clinging to those moments with everything I had. But then came the final year. The one where time seemed to speed up and slow down all at once. Rachel had become more fragile, her body a shell of the vibrant woman she once was. Yet her eyes still sparkled with the same fire, the same love. She started talking less about the present and more about the future, the one I'd have to face without her. And then, just days before her final breath, she asked me to sit beside her in the garden one last time. The roses she'd planted were in full bloom, their fragrance filling the air. She held my hand, her fingers cold but steady, and she said, "I've written something for you, Ethan. It's not much, but it's everything I have left." I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The woman I loved more than anything was preparing to say goodbye. And as much as I wanted to beg her to stay, I knew it wasn't in my hands. That night, she handed me a sealed envelope with my name scrawled across the front. "Don't open it yet," she said with a weak smile. "You'll know when it's time." The following days were a blur. hospice care, friends and family coming to say their final goodbyes, and the overwhelming weight of knowing I'd have to let her go. On the last night, as the stars painted the sky with quiet brilliance, Rachel took her final breath. Her last words to me were simple, yet they echoed with a depth I couldn't understand at the time. Live, Ethan. I held her letter in my hands for weeks before I found the courage to open it. When I finally did, her words were like a lifeline, a piece of her I could hold on to, even though she was gone. As I unfolded the letter, my hands trembled. It felt as though her presence was in the room, like she was sitting across from me, watching, waiting for me to take in her final message. The letter was written on the same stationery she used for all her notes, soft lavender paper with tiny roses in the corners. Her handwriting, though shaky, was unmistakably hers. Ethan, it began, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I know those words are hard to hear, but I need you to know that my love for you doesn't end here. It never will. Our story doesn't stop just because I've moved on. You're part of me, and I'll always be part of you. Her words hit me like a tidal wave. I felt the grief I'd been holding back flood through me. I could barely see the page through my tears, but I kept reading, desperate to hold on to every word. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to leave behind. Not just for you, but for the world. And what I realized is that it's not the big moments that matter most. It's the little ones. The sound of your laugh, the way you dance when you think no one's watching, the way you hold my hand like it's the most precious thing in the world. Those are the things I'll carry with me, wherever I am. And those are the things I hope you carry with you too. I could picture her writing those words, sitting at the kitchen table with her favorite pen, her brows furrowed in concentration. I could almost hear her voice, soft and steady as though she was speaking directly to me. Ethan, I want you to promise me something. Promise me that you'll keep living. Not just surviving, but truly living. Go on those adventures we talked about. Try the weird foods. Laugh until your stomach hurts. Fall in love again, even if it feels impossible right now. Life is too short to be anything but full of love and wonder. I stopped reading for a moment, unable to process what she was asking. Fall in love again? How could I, when my heart felt like it had been ripped from my chest? But even as I questioned it, I knew she was right. Rachel had always been wise beyond her years, always able to see the bigger picture when I couldn't. The next part of the letter was shorter, but it carried a weight that felt almost too heavy to bear. There's one more thing I need you to know. It's the reason I wrote this letter, the reason I held on as long as I did. I need you to remember these 2 words. Choose joy. Whenever the world feels too heavy, whenever the grief feels like it might consume you, choose joy. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. You deserve to be happy, Ethan. We both do. Those 2 words, choose joy, stayed with me long after I finished the letter. They became a mantra, a lifeline, a reminder of the kind of person Rachel was and the kind of life she wanted for me. In the weeks that followed, I found myself repeating them over and over, especially on the hard days. At first, it felt impossible. How could I choose joy when the person I loved most was gone? But slowly, little by little, I started to understand what she meant. Joy wasn't about forgetting her or moving on. It was about honoring her memory by embracing the beauty of life. It was about finding happiness in the small things, the way the sun felt on my skin, the sound of rain tapping against the window, the laughter of children playing in the park. I started doing the things we'd talked about, but never got the chance to do. I took a cooking class, traveled to places we'd dreamed of visiting, and even adopted a dog, a goofy golden retriever I named Rosie, after Rachel's favorite flower. Each step felt like a tribute to her, a way of keeping her spirit alive. And then one day, something unexpected happened. I laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a half-hearted smile, but a deep, belly-aching laugh that left me breathless. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive. And in that moment, I realized that Rachel was right. Joy wasn't just something to choose. It was something to fight for. It's been 2 years since Rachel passed, and not a day goes by that I don't think about her. Her letter sits framed on my nightstand, a constant reminder of the love we shared and the lessons she taught me. I still miss her. Of course, I do. But I've learned that missing her doesn't mean I can't be happy. In fact, the love we shared makes the joy I find now even more meaningful. Her legacy lives on in the letters she wrote, the memories we created, and the way I choose to live my life. And every time I feel lost or overwhelmed, I think of her final words: choose joy. They've become my compass, guiding me through the storms and helping me find light even in the darkest moments. If my story resonates with you, if it's touched your heart or reminded you of someone you've loved and lost, I'd love to hear from you. Let's keep Rachel's message alive. Share your thoughts, your stories, or even just a simple choose joy in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of love, resilience, and hope, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. Together, we can keep sharing stories that remind us of what truly matters in life. Thank you for listening.